Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co-host, Patience Jones. With me, as ever, is
Brian Jones,
their other co-host. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are talking about consistency, which is a word that lots of people bristle at. So we've titled this episode, Consistency is Not the Enemy.
And there's no twist ending. It doesn't end up being the enemy at the end.
Consistency murders you in your sleep is how this is all going to end. Let's talk about, what do we mean? Consistency is a big concept. So we're talking about what kind of consistency?
Consistency in your communication efforts and the frequency with which you communicate.
And we're focusing primarily on external communications
so
for this
people outside of your firm
episode.
Company. Yeah.
Yes. So give me an example of how what it looks like when you're not consistent.
Well, I mean, define an absence. It's really like it boils down to...
just turned so deep. Yeah. Such a deep episode.
It's probably more the things that aren't happening as a result of the lack of consistency. So you may notice that fewer people are getting in touch with you. You may not be up for consideration for jobs that you felt like you were a good candidate for. You may not have articles written about you, any number of things. Those are the sort of the telltale signs, but it's the connection with other people that's probably the first note that you have that you're not interacting with more people.
That sounds so easy and arguably fun. Why is that something that gets overlooked?
We get busy. Like, that's the short answer. We have our jobs to do, and this feels like something extra on top of that, of our job, where you have to reach out to people, you have to plan on how you're going to communicate, both in a macro sense and in a micro sense. So it's like we're talking about, emails that you might send to a person or a social post that you might leave out in the world. But all of these things are the elements of consistency and communication from your firm to the outside world.
I think it's probably difficult too, because people want to be, I hate this word, but they want to be authentic and they want to be genuine, like from a very good place of not like a faux genuine, but they really want to be themselves. And so I think it gets difficult when you are having a really long day or a really long week or a really long month that may be filled with professional difficulties, personal challenges. You don't feel like you're the version of yourself that you want to put out in public.
Yeah.
And so you say, well, I'll do that when I feel better, or I'll do that when I have time, or I'll do that when I can collect my thoughts. On the one hand, like, I get that. On the other, then you end up with these huge gaps in when you last communicated with somebody.
I think it is definitely that. And it's also perfectionism, where you are waiting for this perfect moment to present itself, that you have you're entitled to this communication, as it were. And so you feel emboldened and you want to share it. And then that's that for months and months and months.
The entitled, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's not necessarily that the person, I don't know that it's entitled in the way that we normally take the word entitled. I think it's more that people feel like they haven't done something to warrant a communication.
Exactly.
And so just reaching out and saying, oh, how are you? Or, oh, I saw that, you did this thing. That's great. They feel like they have to have something to share that justifies the connection or the contact.
And, I think that is, I understand where you can come out on that. I know I have suffered from that in the past. But I also want to caution against the other end of the spectrum, which is like, happy Groundhog Day, so it's there is a reasonable and professional way that you can engage in a consistent effort without feeling like you're just glomming on to whatever happens to be happening in the world at that moment.
I think this is also where the idea of having a generous mindset comes in, because the easiest way to mitigate that agita over, what do I have to say? What are people going to think of my accomplishment or lack thereof, whatever, is to focus on the person that you're talking to. What's going on with them? What have they done? What are they interested in? What questions can you ask them? Not an interrogation, but what are they up to? Show some genuine interest in them. Make it about you having a connection with them, not you sounding off about whatever your latest achievement is.
Yeah. It's about an actual relationship and building a relationship and building camaraderie. It matters.
And it will make it easier in those times when you feel like, I don't feel like it, or I'm tired, or I don't have anything to say. It doesn't matter. There's always something going on with somebody else that you can talk about or ask them about.
It's important to, because I think the pushback I'm hearing in my mind over this topic too is the idea of like, well, but I put a social post out, last
Yes.
month or last, year. And so think about this in the context of how long a social post actually lasts.
Yeah.
You have from the low end of the spectrum, which would be a few minutes, to the high end of the spectrum, which would be a day. That's the amount of time you're dealing with maximum is a day. And that's how much impact and how long it lives out in the world.
I mean,
it lives longer, but I mean,
yeah.
the likelihood that it's going to be captured and engaged by new people diminishes.
Fair.
So how do you, knowing that, it's, I think, a great helpful fact to keep at the front of mind, not because that every communication has to be on social media. It should not. But that regularity, it does express the idea of regularity and consistency very clearly, that if you only communicate once every, blue moon, as it were, then people probably don't have a large memory of what you're up to and don't consider you in part of their regular thought process.
If you think about it like going into a coffee shop, if you have a regular coffee shop that you go to every day or every couple of days, people recognize you, you recognize them, you exchange pleasantries. Maybe sometimes you have more in-depth conversations, or you have, a more in-depth conversation with one person that's there. They might introduce you to somebody new. And when you don't show up for a couple of weeks, they'll say, "Hey, we noticed you were gone. What's everything okay? Or what's new?" That's kind of what you're aiming for. You're aiming for that daily coffee shop level of interaction. And in the coffee shop, I mean, Lord, I hope you're not doing this. You should not be going in and pouring out your life story to that poor barista. That's not, I think sometimes people think that's what they have to do when they're externally communicating, is like, well, since I've got this platform, I need to really make the most of it and, go on and on and on. You need to do just a little bit like you would to somebody that you were talking to in a coffee shop. And if you think about it like that, like it's your daily coffee. You're going to go get your coffee, chat with some people, go on with your day. That's it.
And it definitely has a cumulative effect.
Yes.
The more that you get in the habit of doing this, the easier it will become. And also the buildup of outcome will be there as well, because you'll have more connections because you're making more connections, and it will get to be a little bit more self-sustaining, a little bit, not completely, but a little bit.
And I think when you're not posting frequently, or you're not emailing frequently, or you're not reaching out to people, the first time that you do after a long pause feels so monumental. And it feels like you're just doing this really big thing, and then you wait. And you wait, and when the reactions that you hoped for don't come in, because they're not, because you haven't posted, and so algorithm and people aren't seeing your feed, when those reactions don't come in, then you feel deflated and you think, well, why did I even do this? I'm not doing this anymore. So you have these big ups and downs in your external communication, or your firm won a big project and you haven't externally communicated in 2.5 years. You won this project and you don't understand why you're not on people's radar, and they're not picking it up, and they didn't like your LinkedIn post. The only way to avoid those wild ups and downs are to be consistent. And consistency is not the same as drudgery.
Yeah.
This is not, I think it's important to get rid of that mindset.
I think where I might start too, and this is just a recommendation, is to pick out a goal for yourself of a number that you want to try and hit in a week's time. So I'm going to process 3 communications of some sort. So I might send 2 emails and I'm going to put 1 social post. And that's week 1. Maybe week 2, you turn that up just a little bit. And that each subsequent week, you turn it up a little bit more until you reach a point where it feels like you have a natural, saturation that you need to have. But start small, but start.
Start small, and you may never get beyond small because for you, for what you're comfortable with and what you can sustain is small, and that's okay. I have seen firm leaders decide to go, head on into social media, and they decide they need to post twice a day, every day, and people don't want to receive that in their feed. It's not good for anybody. So this is not like, how can you work up to being everywhere all the time?
Correct.
This is, how can you work up to a consistent effort that is sustainable for you?
And that's a key point.
How succinct.
Key takeaways here.
I think I just said it.
I know. Just rewind 25 seconds and then
right.
that's it.
That's right. Which, let's make another point since we have some extra time. Once you've made a point, it's okay to move on to a different point.
Yeah.
You don't, if your firm achieves something, that's wonderful. You don't have to say that it's achieved that thing every day for 10 days in a row in emails and on social media. And it's okay to say, we did this and we're going to have other future successes. So we've put this out a normal amount of times and now we're moving on.
I mean, the only other key takeaway for me would be, it was kind of unspoken throughout this entire episode, which is that without consistency, you're really counting on luck. And
That's
so
a really good point.
Consistency is the key underpinning of a good and healthy outreach effort and a good and healthy network building effort. And so it's essential.
I mean, you wouldn't leave lots of other aspects of your business to chance. So don't leave this one to chance either. Just do something, do it consistently, and then it'll just become a thing that you do. Hopefully not drudgery.
Yep.
Well, thank you for consistently joining us. We look forward to talking with you next time.